What's up, dudes and dudes, here, my name is Seth, and today we're going to be talking about the Phoenix mount, which some people may or may not have caught my recent live streams talking about this thing, and lots of people have been asking me over and over and over again, what's the Phoenix mount? What are fiery feathers for? What's the Phoenix mount? What are fiery feathers for? This is what fiery feathers are for, folks, is so that you can end up getting this beautiful mount. Now, it's interesting to point out that despite the fact that this does look like and act like a dragon, it can't shoot fireballs, and it doesn't actually end up giving you any extra mastery or stats. It does give you 50 mastery, but I just mean like it doesn't give you the same mastery as a dragon. Outside of the fact that it's got these beautiful, majestic fire wings, like seriously, it's, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. Now, don't get this Phoenix confused with the other one that I showed off in recent videos, which was from getting to 600 mastery. That is pretty much the exact same Phoenix that we got right here, except he's going to end up being a lot more majestic. He kind of has like runes in his wings and stuff, and as far as I remember, his idle animation has his wings on fire too. Or maybe I'm wrong about that one. I don't know. I would have to check my own video. But Mastery 600 is not going to be attainable for a couple months because there's not enough content in the game. And either way, this thing is absolutely beautiful. So, the way that you end up actually getting the fiery feathers is by going into a Forbidden Spires adventure world. So we're just going to hop into one right here, which is at U6. U6 is when the adventure world ends up actually starting, like the Forbidden Spires Biome. So you're always going to want to go into here, which means that unfortunately you're not going to be getting that many stellars or other items as you're farming out in the world, of course depending on your magic find. But you can see we got a huge expansive biome right here. And don't worry, because despite the fact that the tether system is in the game as I'm recording this anyways, it's going to be hot fixed out anytime now. You're not going to have to worry about like going and completing dungeons and stuff like that or competing with other players, because what you're actually trying to farm is the normal enemies, so these guys right here. And you're gonna want to definitely, if you can, hopefully you got the right stats for it, folks, but this is where I would highly recommend getting a movement speed build. So you either get your Neon Ninja Rage speed build or get a movement speed build for your Lunar Lancer or your Knight. You're gonna need it because you're gonna be grinding thousands upon thousands of these enemies, just flying through the biome as quickly as you can, blast an enemy apart, and then continue onward. Now, it's important to note the way that the biomes actually generate. So, while we've got this one new expansive biome, it does have different chunks that can end up generating different terrains. So right here we've got kind of this nice flat land, and then up there we've kind of got a more swampy area. Now, it's important to note that this flatland area, the enemies kind of spawn in a grid section in Trove, so think of a checkerboard. And with that, you can kind of just use that to your advantage to kind of go through the environment. Oh, there's a dude here, which means that if we continue forward, there's going to be another one right here. And then if we go into a zigzag pattern, there's one right here, which means that there's going to be another one near right over here. And then there was also that other guy up there and the goat down there, but we're rubber banding. And my point being that because everything kind of generates in that checkered pattern and the way that this biome generates, sometimes you'll actually have the enemies generate on these little mountains right here or on top of trees, making it a little bit less efficient because you're not going to want to go like the verticality of actually jumping this high in the first place. Maybe you're a starting player and you don't have that much jump, but on top of that, maybe it's just taking too long to actually get up here, right? Which is why I would actually recommend, if you can, to go up into a biome like this, only if you end up having enough extra jump. Because what this generation is going to end up doing for you is a lot more enemies are not only going to be able to just spawn regularly, because you can see like these guys are spawning so close to each other, but also the fact that you're not going to end up getting any of the enemies generating too high up, like in a tree or on top of one of those big spire mountains or anything like that. So generally it's going to be pretty easy to find the enemies in this area just because you're going to be jumping around so much. Get out of here, you guys! Stupid rubber banding weirdness. So as I ended up reconnecting, we were way down in this 3-star dungeon, even though we were actually up in those mountains 2 seconds ago. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, just about farming the enemies and stuff like that. Now, what you can do to kind of break it up is, of course, just go down from the mountain into the big plains area, and then just back up into the mountain and kind of just wander around the area. Certain dungeons, of course, are going to end up being profitable as well. This 3-star is a very good one to actually go into because you can can end up getting a whole bulk of enemies right in the front house, the middle house, and the one that's all the way in the back where the 3-star boss is. That's definitely going to end up helping. It's also important to note that enemies out of Cursed Skulls are not going to end up actually dropping the fiery feathers. So you do gotta definitely keep that in mind with how you're trying to end up being efficient and with grinding and stuff like that. Whereas bosses like this big fat idiot right here, they can actually end up dropping the fiery feathers. That's why going into a dungeon like this usually ends up being pretty okay. But you don't want to go into every single dungeon. And honestly speaking, if you can, just avoid the dungeon altogether because you're going to end up getting a whole lot more enemies. As you can see right here, we got 3 already, 4 already right beside each other because of the generation of the biome. And it's also important to note that the most efficient way you're going to end up grinding this is most of all just kind of going in circles, because this was the same goat enemy right here that we ended up killing at the beginning of the video, and it ended up respawning. Because enemies do actually respawn in Trove. They just take a certain amount of time to end up actually doing so. Also, sorry to headphone users if you hear it humming in the background. It's because the heat's coming on. It's freezing here in Canada. So, again, you can want to kind of go in circles just about like every 10 minutes or so, kind of clearing out a big area. And if you see like a whole bunch of enemies like we got right here, we actually got a lot of really good generation. Not to mention, like, just the fact that the enemies would end up respawning, right? So you want to kind of just keep going in circles. And hopefully it's not as laggy as it is for me right now, because while I was grinding up the Phoenix, thank goodness I was actually dealing with normal Trove. Like, it wasn't this laggy like it is right now. I'm recording this at the server reset, so that's why, like, there's a lot of people logging in to get their daily quests and stuff like that, right? So you should be able to, if you're not doing this during prime hours, just go up, kill an enemy, and move on, so on and so forth. Water areas like this, you want to avoid like the plague, because no enemies, of course, can spawn in a water area. They're only going to be able to spawn on the surface. And then without further ado, we're going to hop back on over to the club world here so I can show you where exactly you end up crafting it, because everybody's always asking, well, you know, the Phoenix sounds really, really cool, but where do you actually get it? Where do you actually end up crafting it? Now, your club world is going to end up being different, but for as Team Pixel and the PC anyways, you're just going to want to go right up into here and find yourself the Forbidden Workbench. So the Forbidden Workbench, before we end up looking at the crafting recipe for the mount itself, is actually crafted over at the Builder's Crafting Table in the Blocks and Decorative. So it's going to be the Forbidden Workbench right down here, and that's going to be 30 Infinium and 40 Formicite. This is why nobody knows about the Phoenix mount. Nobody even knows about this thing just because of the fact that it's like so awkward and weird where you end up actually crafting it, that so many people are just like, what's a fiery feather for? And nobody's gonna read through that patch notes, dude. It's way too big. Because the Forbidden Workbench in itself is for the new like recipe items and stuff that are associated with the new biome. So we got all the different Spire recipes, all the Spire frameworks that you end up just getting by default, and then all the advanced framework recipes. And then down here we've got Forbidden Spire Mounts. Now the fact that it says Mounts is relevant. We'll talk about that in a minute, because otherwise this is going to be the stats of the creature, which is movement speed on the ground is going to be 90. It is affected by the Knight subclass ability, and then its gliding speed is going to end up being 95 and gliding at 100, and whatever that even means. But here's the thing that's really important to note is that it says mounts, and even in the description, the 5 rulers, 5 of them, meaning that at some point we're going to end up getting another mount that we're going to have to grind out of the Forbidden Spires. I just hope they end up changing the method. Hopefully it's going to end up being like a boss enemy or something, rather than being as gross as the Phoenix is, where we end up just having to grind all the random enemies. Maybe the Fiery Feather even will end up being a resource that we would use for all of the new Forbidden Spire mounts, but honestly, I wouldn't count on it. Now, actually crafting the mount is going to be something altogether difficult, just because you're gonna need 2,000 Cinnabar, which can be very difficult if you're farming it for yourself. I would recommend that you do it on ore day, and even then, I'm gonna have a video talking about Cinnabar and where you actually get it. It's just an ore that you end up finding out of the Forbidden Spires, but it can end up being very, very difficult to grind. And generally speaking, everyone's kind of selling it and making a fortune off of it, just flux-wise, because of the fact that it's such a like annoying ore to end up grinding, because you only ever see like 4 or 5 blocks when you end up actually finding an ore vein, right? So 50,000 flux, which again is very, very steep for starting players, but with this new update, there's so many more different ways of making flux. I mean, I make a flux farming tutorial because people keep asking me, and this update finally ended up changing a lot of things. Then we got 600 Primordial Flames, again, very costly for starting players. 250 Fairy Dust, that's not too bad. And the 100 Fiery Feathers. Now, the reason the 100 Fiery Feathers is so difficult is because you don't really get them that often. Granted, you're going to get them more often than you see Dragon Fragments, but that's where it kind of compensates for itself, where you're going to need so much of it. And on average, you're going to end up getting maybe 8 to 10 Fiery Feathers an hour. And that's an hour of using the Neon Ninja Rage speed build, dude. So you can either get very, very lucky and just get a whole bunch right away, or you can end up being, you know, just kind of the average amount of time that it seems to actually take to grind the Phoenix is somewhere around 10 to 18 hours, depending on your luck. It's the same as any of the other Dragon Fragments. I've heard people that have been grinding the Phoenix and got it at like 20 hours of solid grinding, right? And that's no life, just grinding nonstop. I was able to get this guy in 2 days, and I got him at like maybe 13 to 14 hours of just solid grinding, you know, with taking breaks for like food and stuff like that, obviously. But either way, you know, is it worth it? I don't know. I think it's a fantastic mount. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and the fact that it's got video effects and glides around and stuff like that for sure. But honestly, I think it should be 75 Fiery Feathers, just because of the simple fact that you're not going to be getting that much. Like, the mastery you get out of it is just 50, which, okay, that's fine. But it doesn't give any stats towards like your magic find or anything. I know that it's not supposed to be a dragon, and that's why it doesn't give those stats. But I guess it is pretty epic. Yeah, okay, it's worth it. Like, seriously, look at this thing. So we're going to end up getting a free one of these, if you even consider getting Mastery free anymore. You're going to end up getting another Phoenix out of the Mastery whenever Mastery 600 is actually possible. Lots of people always ask, by the way, I just want to say this in passing, where people are always saying, like, well, the Mastery cap's at 1,000. How long is that going to take? We can't get to Mastery 600 right now with all of the items that are in the game. Mastery cap was boosted to 1,000 so that they could slowly implement items and not have to keep boosting the cap. That's all. But in any case, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Very much appreciate it. Hope that you enjoyed today's video and tutorial, and good luck to going out and grinding this thing for yourself, because it sucks. It's worth it, though. Trust me, this thing is absolutely beautiful, and the fact that you can get it as a free-to-play player, which is why it's like so awesome, you know? But anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content that's also going to build up loyalty points in my merch store. Links are in the description for that. And for those of you that want to go the extra mile, you can donate to me for absolutely free by signing up with Gawkbox. So go to the links in the description as well if you're confused about that and you want to know more. Sayonara and stay epic, everybody.